So this is going to be a hell of a podcast. I'm really excited to have Paul Daley onto the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Who I've roped in at very short notice. To give everyone a short synopsis on who you are, I first came across you on a podcast with Eddie Maloof we were just talking about, which was absolutely wild and amazing, and I've been binging on YouTube ever since. What would be a brief introduction to who you are, what you've done, and why anyone should care what you say?
I'll skip everything until the online space because most people don't care. So I'm most known for being Iman's COO/CEO for the last 2 years. How are the mic levels? Just because my voice has gone gains okay and everything. I was Iman's COO and CEO for the last 2 years. I stopped working with Iman. We parted ways. He asked me to leave, actually, to be frank with you. I said that on Eddie's podcast. I'm very upfront about that. Super nice guy. Love Iman. Really good friend of mine. The only downside about leaving, genuinely, is that we don't get to hang out anymore. You know, different sinks in life. But anyway, so was with Iman for 2 years, and then since then have been working with brands, kind of like yourself, on just helping them grow their businesses. I'm not by means. I know you said you're binging YouTube. I'm not a content creator. I'm trying to learn that skill. I am someone who grew in the business world first. Content is secondary. I work with people who tend to work in the content world first, and business is coming after. Some guy, like I have clients that are doing 20 million a year that are business first, and I can still work with them on different things. But the content first guys are the guys that I've found like a really nice little soft spot for.
I noticed your attention to detail with content. We've even mentioned like gain on the mic, and I've seen some of your videos talk about spending like 50K on camera setups and stuff like that. So,
bro, I'm super type A. You can ask him. My editor's over here off camera. I catch the smallest stuff. I would hate to work for me, dude. Yeah. I am so neurotic. It's crazy. But I try to make it not look that way, but I'm very neurotic.
Do you think anyone who's operating at a high level needs to be like that?
Absolutely. I've yet to see someone who I've personally deemed as successful that has not been easy story for me to tell. So I have a really, I don't like to call him a mentor, but he's been the biggest mentor in my life, but he's a really good friend of mine. He's a close friend. Before I got into business, this guy and I have known each other for 10 years. He is the wealthiest man I know by far. And we were at one of his lake houses. He has multiple houses. They all are multi-million dollar houses. And we're in the backyard. And to give you if the Ritz-Carlton wanted to learn how to do interior design, they would go to this place, right? The Restoration Hardware will ask, can we take photos of your house for the magazine and such? And his places are decadent, and he designs them. And he is the one who oversees all of the contractors managing everything and making sure that he has 188 landscaping lights in his backyard. And when I was back there, this is 5 years ago, and we're having a drink and we're walking from the boat back to the house. And I'm like, do you ever just take a second and actually look at, and we were talking about this, like, you're sharp. Guys, I got out of the car, you're already there waiting for me. And it's like, I can tell it's go time. He's the same way. I'm like, do you ever take a second and just look? And he's like, fuck that. Like, no. He's like, what I see right now is that there's this light's out, that light's out, this light's out, that over there, it needs to be replaced, etc. His attention to detail makes me look like I'm oblivious. And my attention to detail makes most people look like they're oblivious. There's so many levels to the game, but everyone I know that I respect and look up to are very neurotic. They don't necessarily do everything themselves, but they know what to look for, and they're really, really type A.
Was Iman the same in that respect?
Iman's an incredibly messy person. He'll say that publicly, but he's neurotic in knowing what keeps stuff clean, and he is neurotic in that he can manage that kind of stuff well. Like, and with content, bro, Iman's a genius. And he kind of like me. He knows how this stuff works. That's how he started, And so, yeah, I don't know how to answer that question better than that. Short answer is yes.
What do you think makes some people successful who are content creators and others aren't? It's like, for example, we work predominantly with people in the fitness industry, and we've worked with some people, quote unquote, influencers who are terrible at running a business and ultimately won't ever really be successful, even though they have a big audience.
Yeah.
Then we work with some people with a small audience who make loads of money because they're great business operators.
Yeah, I think number one is just understanding your lane. So there's so many people who think because I can do one thing, I can do the other. It's not true, not in the slightest. That's why I'm very keen on saying I'm not a content creator. Everyone that I've seen that does well, so I said this on some piece of content before. I don't know if you ever saw it, but there's 3 people you need in every business. You need someone who can get eyes. That would be you. That's why we're doing this. That's me now too. But someone who gets eyeballs, like attracts eyeballs. This would be the guy in the olden days who's like screaming at the top of a mountain or like screaming on the sidewalk, like, we got this, blah, 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 and getting people to come in. Then you have to have someone who can liquidate eyeballs. If you're screaming on the sidewalk, the guy who made the flyer that you're handing out, or the guy who trains the sales reps that then talk to people, that's your liquidator. So that's like in modern days, your CMO, your sales VPs, blah, 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 blah. And then you need someone who can like run the business, and that's your COO, that's HR, legal, finance, product, blah, blah, blah. I gotta get better at saying blah, blah, blah. That's my apologies. Again, this is a new skill for me. So realistically, what I see keep most people from succeeding is trying to do all three on their own, because they think since I can get eyes, I can do the other ones too. But each one of those are individual skill sets. And normally you'll only find people who are a master at one. The guys who crush it realize I am a master at this, and so I'm just going to do this, and I'll find other people that I can bring in, talent that I can recruit, that can then do the others. The best business people that I find, Eddie's an example of this. To go bigger, it's like Grant Cardone, Elon Musk, etc. And to go like more even smaller into our space, Tony Robbins, Brian Page, guys like that. They are so good at recruiting talent. They're like gravitational fields, just pulling in talented people that can focus on one of those three things. Does that make sense?
100%. It's funny. I spoke about this at our event at the weekend. Basically, the second day, all I spoke about was hiring and operations. Because for me, I've realized in the last 6 months that like you can be LeBron James in a basketball team. If the other 4 players playing with you are terrible, like the other, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Like no matter how good you are, like you're fighting an uphill battle. You'll never win. Out of those 3 people, at what stage do you think, like when people are building their business, they should start to try and consolidate
that's
into one?
Consolidate into one role.
Yeah, which is probably their
That's
genius.
the hardest thing, right? It depends on the model. There's so many factors in it, so I can't give you like a cash flow level. But what I can say is that eventually what will happen is one of them starts outperforming the other, right? So your content blows up, or your content's not blowing up. You're getting really good at making money from the people that you're following or something. And whatever is not blowing up, you know, I'm good at this. I'm going to stick with this. I need to find someone who can help me with this one, right? And so it's almost like, imagine, dude, bad analogy, but maybe I can make this work. Imagine you have 2 gym partners. So 3 of you are going to the gym, and one of you guys starts really outperforming the others. You're going to know like, okay, I'm good at this one thing. That's why I'm getting good at it. So I need to find 2 other gym partners that can help me with that one thing. Or bad analogy, but I think you at least get where I'm trying to go with it. So it just depends. You'll find the cool thing about business, dude, everyone acts like business is business, but it's a myriad, like I don't know if that's the right word, a ton of skills. It's almost like saying I play sports. There's so many fucking sports. That doesn't actually mean anything. And even in one sport, you have so many different skill sets in that sport. You'll find out like Messi is not the world's best
goalkeeper, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. Or I was going to say even shooter. Like he can't shoot from long range like Ronaldo can, right? And so he wouldn't. He doesn't play to that game. He plays to the game that he's really good at. The reason I'm saying that is to think you're good at business is to say is like a gross like understatement. What you need to be good at is one thing, and then slowly finding people that can do the other things, and that really will come out when one thing blows up and the other things are keeping you from actually growing. So for a lot of people, it could be content. You get good at content, but then you're not making a lot of money. Then it's time to bring in people who know the other side of the world of like. It's funny, bro. I was with Mike and Rob and Louie, and we were joking about how the people they know, I don't know, and the people I know, they don't know, and we're just 2 different worlds. And sometimes when it comes down to it, opposites, like they attract for a reason. That's why I've been able to work with my clients really well. But that's also when you see that lack of growth and that glass ceiling, that tends to be the time you probably need to look.
Well, I even think about the examples there, like in that comparison, say Mike Thurston and Rob. And you fill the voids in each other almost. Like they're great at traffic, you're great at business.
I'm not saying they're not.
But as an example, like
yes, yeah, exactly. Like, bro, I can't teach them anything about content, you know. But Rob and I had a great chat, and we were talking about business a lot. And I look up to Rob, and I would say in those retrospects, maybe he looks up to me a little bit. And so that's I think everyone needs, bro. There's no doing this alone. Steve Jobs had Steve Wozniak. You know, every single person that you ever look at in business had someone else doing it. Ty Lopez has COOs that are 50% partners in some of the businesses and such. Everyone's doing it with someone. To think you can do it on your own is like this lie that everyone thinks to themselves. No one even tells them that lie. It's just a lie people believe. Because you see guys like you, guys like Iman, guys like Mike, etc., and you just think that guy does everything. He's a genius. I have to be just like that. But then you meet them and you're like, oh no, he's got a team of people behind him. That's the one thing. When I was on Iman's team, everyone would always compliment like how good the team was that was supporting him. And so anyway, that's in my eyes, if you said business was one skill, it's like the skill of recruiting talent. And the joke that we always used to have was, it doesn't matter what we do, we can do anything in the world. We could sell insurance or eyeglasses tomorrow. It doesn't really matter as long as we have a good team with us, and kind of every single problem you could ever run into is faced at that point.
Sticking the teams theme, what would you say from your experience seeing is the best way to make teams driven and self-sufficient? Because I see, and like our business has been at that point where we've grown very quickly, that sometimes it can be quite dysfunctional. We've had to replace people we want at the level we want. How have you found is the best way to create that like a driven culture where people want to take responsibility and be self-sufficient?
Let me ask you a question before anything.
Yeah.
What do you do right now? I hate one-sided podcasts.
Yeah, sure,
I want to talk to you.
Ask me.
So what do you right now? What do you do to try to make them more driven,
so
bought in?
One of the best things you mentioned about no one figures this out on their own. I love masterminds. I won't masterminds, but I love going to other people's masterminds. I went to a mastermind in Costa Mesa in California maybe 8 weeks ago. I spoke with Bedros Koulian, he's also come on the podcast, and I spoke with him, and he gave me the best advice he gave me was what's called his FLIT training. It was like future leaders in training, do 3 20-minute trainings a week with like the core team of people who want to develop as leaders and focus on leadership training. So I've done that the last 6 weeks. That has made more difference to my business than absolutely anything.
Oh, isn't it weird?
And it costs me nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
That's awesome. I'll say a couple things on team. So number one, Ty and I had a day at Ty's farm. It was an 8-hour day, bro. I rode the tractor with him. We just chatted for 8 hours, had dinner, the whole thing. And one of the things that we talked about, he doesn't have like a rule for this, so I'm trying to like coin a term. I call it the 6X rule. It's patent pending kind of thing, right? But at 4 to 8 people, that's the amount of people that people can pour into. So one of the things as you start to grow, when we're talking about team, now we're talking about bigger businesses, which means like there's a lot of people, and the mistake a lot of entrepreneurs try to do is, or make, I should say, is they try to pour into everybody. But the thing is, you actually have to become selfish to become selfless. You have to pick the people that you want to pour into. And humans, the only person that's ever not done this because he was God was Jesus Christ. Every other human that's made an impact to the world has stuck to 4 to 8 people that they poured into. And so I'll break down a couple of analogies, and then there's one other point that I'll say to this too. But think about, we'll use Amazon. So think about Jeff Bezos, and then think about his C-suite. They're less bought in than Bezos, right? And then you have VPs after. They're less bought in than C-suite. Then you have directors, less bought in, managers, less bought in. Eventually you go all the way down to the warehouse. They don't even probably know what the mission statement is. And what that shows is even the best company in the world has diminishing buy-in through every layer that you go down. But the way that you create more buy-in is essentially by Bezos pouring into that C-suite. So I guarantee you, he talks to that C-suite like one-on-one in group settings probably every single day. Even if he's not the richest man in the world, whatever, top 3, I don't know what he is. The way that Ty and I Ty taught me to do this, and I respect Ty quite a bit. That's why I'll mention Ty's name. I have work modes on my little like productivity hack.
Yeah.
I have work modes on my phone. So I have travel, I have car, driving, office work, home. When I was running a bigger team, I used to have low work, mid work, deep work. Mid work was I had shortcuts to call the 8 people on my leadership team that I wanted to pour into every single day. And so I had 2 hours blocked off where 15 minutes of every single of those 2 hours, 15-minute blocks, was me talking to someone on that team and just pouring into them. And so instead of 20-minute trainings 3 times a week, it was every single day I picked out those people, because to get into that circle was not easy. You had to show promise. So that's number 1. Number 2 is how many people have you hired? How big is your team?
54.
How many have you hired to get to the 54?
120 maybe.
Okay, your numbers are way too low. So Dan Martell did an interview once with this guy who had just sold his software.
So we're not churning enough over.
Bro, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Dan Martell did this interview, and the guy was like, he bought his Ferrari, after he sold his company. Dan Martell's like, what did it for you? The guy said, my team. My team was the only reason I could get this done. Dan said, how many people are on your team? And let's say it was 100. Dan was like, how many people did you hire to get to that 100? And I'm pretty sure it was in the thousands, like thousands of people. What I've seen is 7 to 1 is like churn ratio. For like every 7 people I brought on, 1 would be good enough for me to want to keep. A lot of guys that I respect, that I look up to, the numbers that they'll kind of say would be 7 to 1 is churn to keep. 30 to 1 is like you find talent. And about 50 to 70 to 1 is like you'll find someone who can change the company. And so one of the things that I always was doing, and I've encouraged this for every company I work with, is just constant recruitment. Most people, the Hermosis will talk about this, like having a recruiting pipeline, the same that you do a client pipeline, right? And the way I did it personally was trying to bring people in through the setter department, because in most companies, the setter department is the cheapest way to do it. So you bring people in the setter department, and you'll find talent will almost naturally, like magnetically, find a place in a business just to stick to, even if it's not in sales in the slightest. And then you start giving them a little bit of like extra responsibilities and playing with it. And before you know it, some of the most talented people I've ever seen in different companies I've worked with started out as basic sales reps and then ended up running different divisions in operations or data or blank. And so it's really easy that way to bring in people at the lowest cost because it's expensive. Hiring people, mishires, if you bring them on with salaries, etc., it's expensive. And so when you bring them on as commissioned setters, and then also give them kind of room, almost like a sandbox to play, you'll find really, really talented people. I'd say the problem, if you're, number one, you haven't actually hired enough to do a few things. You haven't hired enough to, number one, increase your baseline. Every single time you hire, and you can say this, having hired 120 people, your baseline gets better and better and better.
1,000%.
Yeah. The other thing it does too is it gives you, when you have a recruiting pipeline, the ability to lead your team more effectively. Because right now, there's probably a couple people on your team that would be hard to replace. If I had to take a guess. And what happens when they're hard to replace is they have leverage on you. And anytime someone has leverage on you, they don't necessarily have to work their ass off because they're kind of safe, right? And so there's always this tension that I want team members to feel, which is like, I have to earn my spot here because there's like 5 people that are trying to take my job and they're ready. Like it would take Paul a day to put someone in my job. But the reason I'm here is because Paul knows that like I'm bought in. And so constant recruiting has been like a big helper in that buy-in process. And then there's more on the hiring process and stuff that we can get into. But like,
it's ironic you said this because we literally built this hiring pipeline like 6 weeks ago and started this whole process. And now we've got like lines and lines and lines of like setters, closers, editors, like everything. Yeah. And this is the whole thing I taught our mastermind is like, because for the same thing for us, I suddenly realized this is the problem. And now you can literally just drop people in and out, hat are ready to go, and it's making a massive difference. Yeah,
and then you can even get into like internships. This is something Ty does a lot, but like internship, like you bring on 10 people at once, different departments and such, and almost have like hiring bubbles, and just let them know, hey, this is a 30-day, 20-day, 15-day unpaid internship, and just start seeing how people perform. Dude, 90% of the people that I brought on that didn't work in that 7-to-1 churn were gone within 20 hours. It's not like it was, I actually tell people, if for every company, Iman's company, every other company I've worked with in the space and my own, the first 7 days is called Hell Week, right? And so the first 7 days, realistically, like you're going to make it no less than a day, or I'm sorry, no more than a day if you're shit. And I can, just like you, I can recognize like bad employees in a heartbeat. And so realistically, all I'm trying to do is bring in as many people as possible for the lowest cost possible, right? After I see they're good, I want to pay everyone as much as possible. Like I want to pay my team, but I don't want to pay out of the gate heavy because then my hiring would just be so expensive. And so I find ways, sometimes it's internships, sometimes it's through the commission center stuff. Sometimes people say I'll work for free, blah, blah, blah. I don't tend to do that stuff, but I'm trying to always find ways to get as much work as possible. Not for free, but at the lowest cost possible. So I can see how they do that, or like at least approach it. And then from that, I can spot talent pretty quickly. Normally hiring is the one thing. Even Dan Martell still does, like, I have a buddy, James, we were talking about it.
Yeah.
He was DMing Dan, obviously a setter, but then Dan actually called him. Bro, like this is a guy who might be a sales rep or something, and Dan's still vetting. And so hiring is the one thing I don't take myself out of too fast. Where
do you personally go and try and find like the best A-player talent?
It's the question of like the world, bro. It's like, where do you find talent? So I think that's probably one of the most powerful things about brand. Specifically, I want my brand to be that I am a smarter guy. Not a smarter guy, let me rephrase. I want my brand to be that we do smart things. And the reason for that is because I think smart people will be attracted to that, right? And so, example given, take someone who goes viral on TikTok and is a crypto guy and such, but there's no real like character.
There's no substance behind it.
There's no substance, yeah. We call it the give a damn factor. There's nothing to give a damn about the guy. I don't think they're going to attract top tier talent. I think they're going to attract a lot of people who want to get rich quick. And so realistically, I think the first part about attracting talent is you have to be someone people attract to who they are. It's called similarity bias or something, but who they feel similar to. And so realistically, if you want to attract top tier talent, you have to show that you are top tier talent and people want to work with the best in the world. The second thing you have to do is you have to have like a world-class mission. So what's your mission statement for your company?
Our mission statement is to help trainers create financial freedom, essentially.
Okay. That's not bad, but the thing is that it has to be, it has to be bigger, right? Okay. So Elon Musk is literally, I'm going to paraphrase different ones, but to live on Mars is like part of, I think, SpaceX's mission statement. Lego, like the toys, that's my favorite. To empower the builders of tomorrow through the power of play today or something. Yeah. But they're like never ending massive problems that the world, like if you do this, the world changes. I would say if you help, financial or trainers make financial freedom, the world doesn't really change too much, And so I'd say, like, how do you make the world change? And then even further than that, do you do any philanthropy to work on that?
Not yet.
But even so, what's in mind? So a good mission always has philanthropy on the back end to actually put. Have you ever watched Shark Tank? That's the first question they always ask. Like, what do you donate to, or how do you give? Blah blah blah. Have you what would you? It's even hard to think about how you would make a philanthropic arm for that mission statement, No,
100%.
And so the mission followed by the philanthropy, followed by how you guys act toward that, then the core values and everything like that. That's what, alongside you being a brand of someone that people want to work with because they can see that you're sharp. Like, I can tell you're sharp in a heartbeat. I haven't seen your content, but I'm sure that it's going to show the exact same thing. And so that, alongside I'm on a mission to do this, that's how you that's how you attract top tier talent. I don't think you can go on Indeed or LinkedIn or blah, blah, blah. The other thing too is once you get big enough, hire someone who's just a world-class recruiter. Good recruiters know the best talent in the world. It's an expensive role, but it's 100% worth it.
It's funny you say that because one of the reasons we set up these hiring pipelines, we probably get 10 DMs a day for job positions.
Yeah.
So and we don't we can literally then just vet them all straight away. Like bang, 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 and automate pretty much the whole process.
Yeah. It's, bro, in a weird way, the DMs have almost never fed me very well. It's the people that when I actually post a hiring post or whatever, be it, they come in and they're like they almost don't want to fill out. I have never applied for a job other than working with Iman. The most talented people, and I'm not calling myself talented in this, but for this example, the most talented people never apply. They never really DM or such. They're just doing something and then they get connected to you, right? And so I think realistically, that's why the recruiter position is so big. But the other side to it too is, example given, we got connected through Rob, right? And so it's having that I've never personally seen hiring work well without brand. Even Elon Musk, he's not a big social guy, but when he was creating PayPal, was very well branded in the business world. If you read other biographies of guys who are in the space, they'll talk about Elon Musk building that and how he was like known to be someone not to fight with. And so people in the world knew him. And then he probably had, I don't know this, but he probably had a recruiter that was reaching out to people. And when you heard, do you want to work with Elon Musk? They would reply. And so I think the best talent you actually have to outreach to. I don't personally do that. I'm preaching something I don't personally practice because I'm just not big enough yet. But I don't know if I'm over talking on this one.
100%. Yet's a word, because I think don't let this go to your head, but I remember when I first came across YouTube, I was like, this guy's really smart. And then I started binge watching it. It reminded me when I first came across Alex Hormozi's podcast, I was like, this guy's really good. I literally listened to like 300 episodes for like 3 months where I was like in the car, just listening to them all. In terms of, from your experience, a lot of your experience is based on managing sales teams. In terms of sales as an area, I think a lot of people get stuck in their business and they make a lot of mistakes, in particular with managing like closers. One of the issues that I see a lot is that you have a closer who's really good at maybe sales, but they're maybe terrible at time management and admin.
Almost always.
Yeah, like at what point do you call that a line with someone where they're incompetent at that point?
So I have I'll tell you a couple lines. Incompetence, one of my favorite words. Amazon has a value of, or at least a statement saying that we're intolerant of incompetence. And the way that I define incompetence is that everyone gets fuck ups, specifically one fuck up per thing. So if you miss or don't do X thing, totally cool. If you do it again, that's incompetence. And I am intolerant of incompetence. If it's something that is incompetent enough, one version of that could be enough for you not to work with us anymore. And so if you don't learn from your mistakes, there's nothing that drives me more insane. The way I look at it is I always want to have the leverage of my team. Okay, there's so much behind this, bro. But in short, number one is the sales reps are the least operational people you ever meet in your entire life. They are almost only focused on money. They are completely disorganized. The reason sales reps are sales reps instead of business owners is because they don't have the operational / administrative know-how yet. Otherwise, every sales rep in the world kind of longs to be a business owner, And so it's almost like how do you manage that? And a lot of it just comes to running a really tight ship. So I was speaking at a mastermind or doing a Q&A with Rob actually, and someone asked me a question about this, and there was James who was on my sales team at one point, talked about how in the very first week James came, was a little bit off on the administrative stuff, was a little prideful, just a little like cocky in the Slack chats and stuff. And I put him down in a heartbeat. First, like 3 days, like when I saw it, I had a call with him. Apparently, years later, he still remembers it, kind of thing. And so I think one of the first things you have to, but I could only do that because I have leverage in the conversation. You know, if there's a sales rep who thinks that they're more valuable to the business than even I am, and they can't be replaced, you're gonna get walked on. I would say even in that regard, still let go of them, because the long term is still gonna benefit for you. But I think for number one, in order to manage it more effectively, again, going back to hiring, you have to know that you can bring more people in. If you think letting this guy go or girl go is going to stop me for weeks on making money, then it's going to be really hard to manage that effectively. So you have to have the leverage. Leverage comes from recruiting. And the second thing is just being like really loving but stern. It's like a tension. You know, if you're just a dick, then no one wants to work with you. But if you're trying to help them grow in a way that's beneficial for them, but also beneficial for you, but you're doing it in a loving way, you really want them to grow, you can be stern and get away with it. I think the one reason that people follow me for so long on the teams and genuinely bought into me so much was because they could tell that I was actually, when I was pissed at them, it was harder for me to be pissed at them and come down than it was for me to let them go. They knew Paul can just drop me for this, but he's pouring into me because he wants me to grow. And that's why I saw change. And so, but it's also, we talked about being neurotic and type A. There's another role that I have for leadership teams. I call it the 7X role, which is whatever you expect your team to do, you have to do 7 times that. And so you can't, if you want your team to be on time to meetings, very small example, but very important. No one in any company I work with has ever been late to a meeting more than once and stayed on the team, right? You're not late. And you will never catch me being late to a meeting. If anything, you'll catch me being the email you get 5 minutes early to the Zoom call. I'm on time and I expect everyone else to be on time. If I was late 5 minutes to every meeting, 10 minutes to every meeting, I guarantee you the culture of every company would be that everyone else is kind of late here and there too, because I don't care, so why should they care? Same with dressing well. If I want my team to wear smart polos or such, I have to be fucking sharp when I get on calls. If I'm wearing a t-shirt that has stains on it, they're probably going to start to look like shit too. So culture stems from the top, even the organizational and administrative side. And so if you're not there, then you can't expect them to be there. That'd be hypocritical, you know?
I think that's one of the mistakes I see a lot of founders making in business. They're not actually leading by example.
Yep.
Whereas I like to do things to prove a point of setting calls on a Sunday morning at 6 a.m. just to laugh, just to prove a point sometimes.
They
if I see
still
something.
got it.
Yep. Yeah, just to prove a point that I can.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes you also need to just remind them. And I think that's where people at the top level have a broad skill set in terms of they can do everything in the business. So to prove a point that if someone's not pulling their weight, or if they say numbers are unrealistic, you can then jump in and take sales calls for them and take a couple and prove that the leads are good.
Yeah. No, bro, that's a non-responsive statement right there. I completely agree. There's nothing I could say that would be other than alignment. How
do you handle in some businesses where you have the marketing versus sales debate? Because I see a lot of times, and even we've had our own businesses before, where there can be a bit of a conflict between sales and marketing, where marketing blame sales blame marketing, and vice versa.
I think there should always be abrasion in different departments. So COO and CEO, and I talked about this, should always be butting heads, right? Marketing and sales should be butting heads. And it's almost, granted, their goal is to make money. It's almost a different goal for each department. Marketing wants to get people on the calendar, get leads in, etc. Sales is, if any department, it's the one I take with the most salt, if you will. Because sales reps, if they had it their way, every single person would show up just asking, how do I pay? Yeah. You know?
Amex or Visa.
Exactly, yeah. And so sales reps are extremely spoiled. Marketers are not sales reps by nature, so they're extremely ignorant. And so they don't understand what a bad lead is or a good lead. Sales reps are just, anything that's not Amex or Visa is a bad lead to them. So there's always going to be abrasion. And so realistically, you just have to be really in tune with both worlds. And so even I think the key is that you have to have a sales manager or VP of sales or whomever who does call reviews and watches calls, and you trust them. Like my CRO, if he ever says oh yeah, they're going to close, I know they're going to close. He will never tell me a deal's going to close in general. And when he does, it's 100% hit proof. But if he also tells me something's off, bro, I also know I trust him. And so he's watching calls all the time. He knows. And on the marketing side, realistically, I think as the front end of the business, that's almost where your attention is normally anyway. So you kind of know what's going on there, and you kind of know what changes have been made. And so, little side note, I always have a change log on the market throughout the company. There's change logs, but the marketing change log is very important, which is every single time a change is made, ad tracker changes or ad changes, media changes, copy changes, anything. it gets logged with a timestamp. And so if my CRO is like, hey, dude, last 3 days, something's been up, I can see what we did 4 days ago, 3 days ago, et cetera. That would cause those changes.
Is that something like fire into Slack or?
You can do it in different ways. A lot of people do it on Notion. We have a Monday board for it. But it's always there. And so I like Slack for communication, not for note taking or logging. And so I personally use monday.com for most of that stuff. So it's a Notion. You can use Gdocs. It really doesn't matter, but it's timestamp, change made, and then usually a legacy version of how to go back to the other one. Meaning, like if it was a Gdoc and you changed the copy, it would be a link to the copy for the old one, so you can just copy paste and get things going again. So anyway, marketing I know, sales I trust, but I don't have time to do that stuff anymore, and so I trust the guy who does have the time, and that's how I can manage that abrasion. But I almost kind of like the abrasion. That means good stuff is happening. Marketing is pulling in people. Sales are being spoiled but arguing and stuff. But when the guy you trust says something's off, then you know. And you should also have abrasion on sales to product. Your CS team should be like, the salespeople are just overhyping what you can do, blah blah blah, right? And again, it's the same kind of thing of like, then this is where I don't trust the CRO, because now his attentions are misaligned. So I don't have this yet because I'm very boutique. But I had it with Iman. You have a VP of product who will watch sales calls for people that do complain, and you trust them because they have a sales background too, on whether or not
they're being oversold. And
so there's always going to be abrasion on the front, marketing to sales to product. And then there's always abrasion with the heads of those to the operations team, because the operations team, all of them are trying to feed in and say, I need this. And so there's always abrasion. It's almost Iman used to, and I don't like to talk a lot about Iman and I in the dichotomy that we had because it was private, but the word he used for my role essentially was that I was the tampon for the team. So everything came back and bled to me, kind of thing. And I was the one who would mediate and triage and the whole thing, right? And that's kind of the role of a leader as you start to grow. So
in terms of managing the team, what's your like meeting cadence like in terms of on a weekly basis, one-to-one reviews, and like managing a team from an operational standpoint?
It depends on how big it is. I've gone through so many cadence changes, right? But in short, I think any leadership should talk every single day for at least an hour a day. So if you actually look at...
It's in like on Zoom open conversation.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you look at software, if most VCs, if they're going to look at buying a software company, they kind of have a rule, which is that the leadership for the software company has to be in the same place, because they know that the more the leadership is with each other, the more growth the company will see. Developers and such can be anywhere, it doesn't matter, but the leadership team has to be core. And if you, there was a company I worked with in Scottsdale, and everyone was there on the leadership team. And I promise you, when I was there versus when I was on Zoom with them instead, night and day difference. And so the more time you spend with the leadership, there is probably a diminishing return where eventually you're just fucking off and you're not actually getting anything done. But the more time the leadership team can be collaborating with each other, the better. So the main thing that I would say is at least every quarter doing a retreat with your leadership team. And I'm not talking like a bender where you're going out getting fucked up, and it's like an actual retreat where you guys are like whiteboard, like working the whole thing, right? The best companies that I've seen have constant lead. I have a dinner tonight with Jaime Hooker. I don't know if you know who Jaime is, but he is constantly with his leadership teams for different companies that he has. And so the more that you're with leadership, the better. When it comes to structures, I'm starting to lean away from having longer meetings. And so sales managers should always have an hour-long huddle with their sales team. Every sales team, if you're not having a Monday through Friday hour-long huddle, I think you're not nearly as efficient as you could be. But then when it comes to leadership, there's like a certain, I haven't found the break point yet, but I lean toward 30 minutes of communication time per day with each department, whether that's one-on-one, whether that's like having a group call and they get their ins, whatever it is. I don't have a perfect answer to that. And I would argue that anyone who thinks they have a perfect answer doesn't. It's just, there's no right or wrong on that one. Realistically, it just depends on where you are. It also depends on you specifically, because you're also asking about you in your time. And that just comes down to where the breaks in the company are. And so if there's something wrong with product, I'll probably have 3 hours a day for 5 days a week of product meetings, and I'll focus on product. And if the sales team's fine, I'm going to be able to kind of cool off from that for a little bit. They're doing their own thing. And so it's also just, where's the problem? Where's the constraint? Like, that's where my time's going to go. Elon Musk, bro, will stay in the fucking factory to like look at different constraints and work through it, kind of thing. And so if your question is more so like, how do I know how to structure my calendar with my teams and my department heads? 6X rule, talk to each department head every single day, phone call, 15 minutes. It's super easy, right? People when you talk to them, you're almost like their therapist. They will voice out any concerns that you need to know about, kind of thing, right? It's almost like they're begging to want to tell you. And so otherwise, if you don't get that, things are good, and you should be doing weekly reviews and on your own time and such. And so you'll see if something's off. And I can even get into different operational values, like show me, don't tell me, end of day reports and all that stuff. I love the fancy stuff, not the fancy stuff, the boring stuff. But main thing is my week-to-week calls change every single week to this day based on where I think the problem is. So right now, for me specifically, most of my time is now going away from content into marketing, because slowly the content stuff is getting a little more turn wheel.
Yeah.
And I need to actually focus on, I don't have a VSL, bro. I don't have a VSL. I don't even have a fucking offer. Like everything I do is so custom and boutique and everything. So I need to, number one, bring on a CMO. We have a fractional guy right now. And then number two, actually start to understand what we're offering and then make the marketing content for it. And that's really all I'll be beside this trip. And then I go to Argentina after this. That's my next focus. Like that's all I'm pouring into. And so I probably won't have any other, I won't talk to sales in the slightest. I'm not going to lead any of the sales portfolio, huddles, or even probably hop into them. I'm just focused on, marketing. That's my prime.
I'm so glad you said that, because the way I think about everything is, and I say to people sometimes, like, what problem are you trying to solve? Or like, what's the problem you need to solve? So like, depending on what I'm trying to focus on at any given time, I try and steer most of the meetings to that. I spend most of my time focused on that, rather than if our fulfillment in our program is sick, then why do I need to have meetings with the fulfillment team if it's working perfectly?
But the thing is, you almost have to remember that, because when you hire people, you feel this need of like, okay, they're on my team. And this is my part. I have to be there, blah, blah, blah. But then that happened to me for a while, and I started realizing my team was becoming more of a weight than like a lifter. And I realized when I got out of it, they probably, if anything, got better. You have to cater like once a week or once every month or whatever the cadence is. You'll find something. Yeah, and it's more so for culture buy-in. If you're not there, they'll feel like they're not being poured into, like they're missing out on something. And so you have to find where that amount of pouring is needed.
So I like these 20-minute meetings, so I can come in, bang, super high energy, super quick on the specific thing, and then I'm out.
Yeah, I like, bro. In that regard, it's cool. But maybe I misunderstood your context. I'm totally cool hopping into different team meetings and pouring in. But the leadership team my C-suite and my directors and stuff, the six people I picked to pour into, I'm pouring everything into them. Like I'm trying to duplicate myself, not duplicate, like 5x, 6x myself, duplicating myself over and over and over through those people. And so that's really, if anything, that if I put time in anything, it's duplicating myself, because this is egotistical, but I know you'll know what I'm talking about. I feel like if you could 5x the amount of U's that are in your business, yes. And so the Ty Lopez is the best.
See by my reaction of like,
yeah, I know. Ty Lopez is the best in the world. I found at this, but Ty can duplicate himself so easily at this point. He's gotten Ty is so good at taking how he thinks and breaking it into SOPs, talking to his team. Like again, he only works with 48 people, talking to those people, and he's just so good at duplicating. It's a skill set that I've yet to master. I would even say I'm still mediocre at it, but the better you get at that, the better your businesses are going to be, because the more you can replicate yourself and that talent, and of course in the right people, which is another talent, spotting the people that and so when you get good at that, you're unstoppable, bro. It's.
What would you say is the biggest thing you've learned about pouring into people?
Picking who you pour into, number one. Okay. I've poured into a lot of people that stabbed me, like in the back kind of thing. So pouring into the right people is definitely the first. I've also learned, dude, one of the things I learned with Iman at the end was not to show everyone everything. So I don't know about you, but I'm like a really open book. If you're close to me, like I give you everything, uncensored. You see who I am. But I don't do that as much anymore, because I've realized that when you are pouring into people and you humanize yourself a little too much, then it's almost like meeting your idols. People want a perfect version of you, and in a kind of inauthentic way. I hate it. But what I learned is when I was more statured, if you will, in front of people, it worked better. And so I think a couple things. Number one, pick who you pour into. It's almost always the guys I've seen that have bigger teams are some of the most careful guys possible. One of the things Iman always looked at was, where can I get stabbed? That's like a thing he constantly would ask himself. Where's the knife going to come from? And so it's this weird thing where you're pouring in, you want to give as much as possible, but you're also knowing somewhere, somehow, someone's going to stab me in the back for it. It happened to Christ, it happened to Caesar, it happened to every leader you can imagine. And so it's just, I think it's a couple things, but the main thing I would say is consistently do it to 48 people. Again, 6 people is kind of what I go for. Do it every single day, and do it knowing, just like Jesus did it, knowing Judas would stab him, do it with love, and just when it happens, brush it off and keep doing it. You know, a lot of people stop pouring into people after they get stabbed for the first time, but you gotta duplicate yourself over and over.
I get your opinion on this. I think this is a mistake I sometimes make, is I end up trying to pour into some of the people lower in the organization as well.
I used to, because you want to, because you also see yourself in them sometimes.
Yeah, I see that they've got the drive or the energy for it, or whatever it is.
I don't pour. So what I do is I'm very
or I always try and G them up a bit, if that makes sense.
That's dangerous, because then they get prideful when they're low, right? But what I would do is I would give them little tasks, and based on like, so I think the rarest skill set that I found in business is spotting talent. I don't know what the word would be, but the ability for people to be like, that guy's got it. And so I remember Iman and I on an interview once, 30 people in this group interview. And the way we did it was we would send everyone to the waiting room after we did some intros, and instantly we both picked the one person that we knew was like the best person on that call. I think talented people can spot talented people, but it's a very hard. 99% of people I've met don't have that skill set, because you have to just rep it out. Like, you have to hire a lot of people to see. Even my CRO dude, he'll be like, this guy's great. I'll be like, no, this is going to happen. And I'll let him make the mistakes. I'll let him bring them on, and then the thing happens and he learns. But the only way to learn why someone's not going to work out is to have that happen to you, you know? And so you've hired so many times at this point, you should hire more, but you've hired so many times that you know where you're going to get burned from different people. You can see the seeds from the very beginning. So what I do on the low level guys, I don't want to say low level, but the beginner or starter entry roles, is I'll give them responsibilities, and I'll just see how they act. Like, I'll be like, instead of pouring into them, I'll just send him a Slack and be like, hey bro, I feel like, you know, can you do me a favor? Can you hit this? And it could be out of their job spec completely, but based on how they do that, like how hard do they try, how much attention to detail do they put in it, like all these little things, I'll be like, no, not worth pouring into, or like, maybe I give them a little more. And eventually, sometimes they end up in the circle, you know? And so it's not that I pour in, it's that I give tests, you know, and based on how they do with the tests, maybe a little more test and more test and more test. But you don't want to pour into the low guys. You got to pour into 6 guys. If you pour into everybody, bro, think about a team of 50 people. If you pour into every single person, you're giving 2% of yourself to every single person. That's not going to get you anywhere. If you pour into 6 people, they each get 10%. If you pour into 4 people, now they're each getting 15, whatever the math is. But the more percentage you can give to people, the faster you can duplicate yourself. The faster you duplicate yourself, the faster the business grows. And so imagine for a second, if you took yourself, duplicated yourself 4 times, and then each of those 4 people are 4xing themselves, 2 layers down, you have 16 versions of you. You know, that it's the hardest thing in the world to do, but that's the game. Rather than taking this entire group and trying to make them more like you focus on small groups, and then they focus on small groups. And that's the process I've seen people do to win.
I couldn't agree with that more. It's something I've learned drastically the last 6 months. In 2024, I think I've noticed a bit of a culture shift in terms of, I think a lot of it's, I almost call it like Alex Hormozy effect, where a lot of people trying to go pretty heavy in personal brand. What do you think is the big play for the next 6 months, 12 months? In my opinion, I think some people sometimes are missing some of the paid ad stuff now, because everyone's thinking like, oh, I need to go make YouTube ads. I need to go on YouTube. I need to do IG. Dude. I need to do like, whereas I'm like, I'm doing that when we're making a podcast right now, but like, I'm also like trying to scale up paid ads, get our tracking dialed in Kairos, like get our like outbound team, like nailing it.
Outbound's hard in this world, dude. Yeah. Outbound's the one thing that we're like, I doubt you do outbound. You mean calling leads?
We do, cold calling leads.
Like, wait.
Well, they're not cold because they're opting in on.
Okay, so I'm huge on wording. We will never use the word cold calling in our departments unless you're calling people that have never heard of us. Okay. So if they opt in, I call that a warm call. And the reason for it is people bitch about cold calls. But just reprogramming how you talk about it and saying like, hey, bro, we actually warm call our leads because they all know who we are already, right? It's different than, hey, I'm working from Blank's office, and they're like, who the fuck is that kind of thing? Yeah. And so I know it sounds crazy. If you stop saying cold calling, your team will completely change like overnight in how they approach the lead conversations. But anyway, so I think that everyone follows trends, meaning 2 years ago, everything was about Facebook ads. Everything was about Facebook ads. And right now it's about AI, and there's always like the trends, but in specific, it's almost always organic versus ads is like the 2 things that go back and forth. And I think Iman started the phase. Everyone started to see how that blew up. And then Hormozy, of course, blew up. And so I think everyone's pushing the content stuff now. They don't even know why. Like they have no idea how it actually will help them in their business, but they're just pushing content. And I talked to Eddie about this, then ad costs go down. And so everyone's like running over here. I don't know if you've seen it, but editor costs, like every editor thinks that they're so much more valuable than they are now because they're becoming this like commodity, and ads are getting less expensive. And so my game personally is you can do one of two things. You can play the opposite, meaning like, you know, when no one's doing organic, then you do organic. And when no one's doing ads, then you do ads. Or you can just pick one thing and just fucking do it. As many times as people go back and forth, you just stay there. It's almost like buying a stock and just never selling it versus trying to buy the dips and sell the dips and such. Iman, when content wasn't cool and when it is cool, is still doing content. Hermosi, when ads are it and not it, he's still doing them as well as content. And so I think the one thing people do is they go back and forth too much to where they actually never put the time in to make either one work. And that's why you see people like spin for so long, and just because they don't go all in on one thing for long enough. Does that make sense? I guarantee, bro, 90% of people probably doing content right now, you won't 100%. See them again in 6 months, 3 months. You know, content's such a long burn. No one's going to wait that long.
Dude, I've made 7,000 posts on Instagram, maybe.
Damn, I made 13 or 14. I have a short-term account, short-form account, maybe like 40 there or something.
And it's a repeated effect of like compound things over time, over time.
Yeah. So you said you're watching the YouTube videos. The reason I'm doing a daily video every single day, missing sometimes because the travel stuff, bro, is hard. Doing a daily video when like our Wi-Fi at our villa is not good, and so we're trying to play out the fact that he's editing and videoing, and we can't upload to our other editor. And so it's like, anyway, but the reason I'm doing it every day, I talked to Rob about this. So Rob has 800 YouTube videos, is what he said. If you do the 1 a week sync that most people do for content, like every editing agency is, we'll help you with 1 video a month or 1 video a week or such. 1 video a week, there's 52 weeks in a year. To get to where Rob is, that would take, 2 years, 8 years? Am I math right? 8 years. And bro, no one is going to make videos for 8 years. Let me rephrase. 99.999% of the person watching this that's like, no, I will. No, you won't. No one makes content for that long for no return. The reason I'm doing it for every single day, and the reason it's important too, is because when you're 300 videos in, just like you said with Eddie, or not with Eddie, with Hermosi, when you're 300 videos in and someone finds you, they have a bank of stuff that they can watch from you. If you do 1 video a week, it takes forever to create that bank. It takes so long for you to get to the point where you have 20 videos. Someone finds your stuff. You've only been at it for 3 months. You have like 10 videos, 8 videos or so. The reason I'm doing a video every single day, even though it's treacherous, is because I'm trying to expedite how fast I create that bank. If I can get to the point where I have 100 videos and it only takes 3 months, I've skipped years worth of work. Does it make sense?
Bro, I did this exact thing at the start of the year, and we did, I think, 45, 50 days in a row of a video every single day.
It's brutal.
And it's hard, particularly like when traveling. So I remember I was in Miami for a while. I was like, this is a pain in the ass. And then we ended up stopping because the videos were starting to step on each other a lot, in terms of like a video starts to push, next one comes out, cuts the other one. But we now have enough videos that we're starting to spread them out a little bit.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to do it forever. The reason I did it was Casey Neistat, bro. Do you know who Casey Neistat is?
I wanted to keep doing it because I quite enjoyed it. It was like a weird sadistic challenge.
I would actually still say you probably should, because Casey did it for 700 something days, grew 10 million subs in that 700 something days. His career he will attribute to the daily vlog. I generally think, and you know, I was talking to somebody about this, really smart content guy. I can't remember who it was, but essentially saying that if you put 1 week's worth of effort into one video rather than 1 day's worth of video into a video every single day, the 1 week stuff will do better. So if you look at Iman, I don't know what sync Iman's on right now. It's probably 1 every 2 weeks, 1 every month or so. It's not 1 a week like it was to my understanding. He has the audience where he can do that. You know, he has the brand power, the followers, the amount of videos in the back. But for most people, I think realistically, just sheer volume is the only
blunt force.
That's all I'm doing, bro. Like, you can ask them. It is just like, we are just gonna push. I don't care if one video doesn't perform nearly as well as it could, because I'm uploading another one, because I know that long-term wise I'm gonna win for it. You know, I feel like if you're spacing out the amount of volume you're putting out for one video to possibly perform marginally better, you're like taking incremental like 4%, 10% gains or so to lose on the amount of compounding effect that you get on doing the daily stuff. Does it make sense?
100%.
It's also when you get into I'm finally getting this phase when they're daily videos, it becomes a lot easier than when you're like, oh, I have to do a video today. And like,
it's a bit like having taken a sales call for a while, right?
Yeah,
you're
it's
rusty.
exactly. Well, it's even just the wavelength that you're on, you know, like I'm kind of always in content mode now, to where it's not like I'm thinking about it, right? And I'm just like, okay, I can do this. But if I go out and then get back into it, it's not that I'm rusty. It's just like I have to change wavelengths, and I don't like changing wavelengths. It's probably the thing that slows me down the most. So.
How do you structure your content and filming over a week then if you're producing this much content now whilst running a business? Because I know that's something that a lot of people struggle with, including myself. So like the way I'll try and structure it, normally I'd never film anything on a Monday. Monday for me, I've had like 5 hours of Zoom calls before this. I'll just try and be like banging on like team meetings and setting everything up for the week. How do you do that in terms of what you're looking to try and do?
So you've seen my content for the most part. It's like Zoom calls and stuff, right? And what last week, 2 weeks ago, I don't know. I tried to do something different, which is where I did calls Thursday and Friday, Monday through Wednesday was content and deep work and scripting, whatever. And I hated it, bro. I actually hated having days that were completely geared toward content. Because if you're the guy, right, like right now thinking about the content, I don't have someone helping me ideate on it and such. And I don't need one yet. I just thought it was unproductive. So I personally like my content to be specifically around what I'm doing, you know? And so my kind of role, like he knows this, you will never see me post for a photo unless we're doing like a photo for the podcast or something. I will never post for a photo. I will never change what I'm doing for content. I don't like the sit down style content. If it's not for me, like the daily bread, little like things I do for myself, those are for me to watch in the future. So I'm totally down to do a video journal for myself. I did one on sales principles the other day and it just felt like I was wasting my time. And so my content specifically is just journaling what I'm doing throughout that day. And I could watch it in 2 years and be like, oh, fuck, bro. Like, why did I do that? That was so stupid. You know, I think most people think about content as they need to educate and sit down and do the Iman Gadzhi style, Hermosi style, sit down videos where you're teaching something. That's a very different type of content that I want to get into personally. What kind of content do you do?
Combination of education and then like daily vlogs. So like, but what I like to do is almost like education. So like when I'm in Dubai, we'll do cool shit of like me going to the gym, driving around a supercar, like whatever, but mixing in education, teaching stuff throughout the day. And
that's
also,
what
like,
I want to do.
A blend of like fitness stuff, because obviously that's my background, like supplements to take, what I do in the gym.
So then why does it take more? Why can't you do that on Monday?
I could do that on Monday. Well, we were filming it today for a vlog, so that's an example.
Because then you just take some clips of Zoom calls, bro, and people are like, oh, fuck, I feel like I'm actually there with him, dude.
I think that's probably where sometimes I'm very open with a lot of things, but some of our business stuff, I don't want to show some of the calls, where I could probably put clips of things in.
Yeah, I screen every single video, and I'll usually tell them like, hey, from like on this call, there's a good part where I talk about this, or he talks about this, or whatever. And so I'm totally with you. Especially with my clients, there's a lot of like stuff that we don't want to talk about on YouTube, right? But I like, if there's anything that I think I will ever get known for, I think it's going to be that I would love if I became the guy that blew up Zoom calls being clips on YouTube. That'd be so cool. But
do you do some of yours on Riverside as well? I think
I'm going to start.
I think I saw you do that and I thought that's a smart idea. If I could do client calls on that,
I'm going to start. Yeah, I haven't done it yet, but I said on a video the other day that we are switching to it. To be straight with you, I don't know how to do it on the calendar. And so my assistant's coordinating and resetting all my meetings and stuff like that. But yeah, Riverside for quality. And then, bro, I personally like my videos more when they're really sporadic, like my days. And so my favorite videos, you can ask him, it's a bitch to edit for me because I want the video to really make it look as go.
Natural and fast paced.
And not that, the fast pace that you have throughout the day, but also the chaos that every single day has to it. Like no day is clean in my life, right? And I want the video to show that. So like you're going from I'm doing this to then I'm fucking going to Walmart because I need to record something and I lost a cable or I don't have this or it's whatever, back to I'm on Loom doing an audit of something for a company, back to Zoom, and I love that. And one of the rules, a little hack, I'm not someone who can teach about content, but one of the things that I did steal from Casey that's worked really well for retention is that we don't ever do anything for more than 30 seconds on a video.
Is it like talking to camera, straight camera angles? Or
Zoom call, camera angle, A and B cam. Technically you can break that, but like realistically people just get bored so fast. And so I know for me, I don't like montages and such. And so like the video we're dropping from Marbella has some like montage stuff, which is cool. We kind of have to do it for some of the stuff we're doing right now. But I like videos where I'm just constantly seeing something new. And it's my brain is a piece that way. And I think most people are because of the new TikTok, Instagram era and such. And Casey, that's why he did so well. If you go back, I do a lot of studying of Casey's stuff because Casey made a killing talking about really nothing, And he made the whole like daily video thing a thing. And the way he did it was just by making them so sporadic. If you really watch it, that's what he's doing. Like, it just feels chaotic. And I feel like humans just naturally want to see that chaos, if that makes sense.
Well, I think it's also relatable. I think, which is what a lot of people want to see sometimes. Yeah,
genuinely. And so, anyway, I would say if you're doing Monday stuff for 5 hours on Zoom, and then, you're doing this, and probably whatever you're doing for work, dinner, and then whatever else, my version of that would be that, first clip would be us at dinner, maybe a B-roll of us on the podcast or whatever. And then it's a Zoom call that you heard earlier in the day. Then it's probably some errand or maybe the gym session, and then another Zoom call. And it's just constantly changing. I like that. The editor who edits my daily stuff, Mateo, doesn't normally do it. He's doing it for the Marbella stuff. He doesn't see my calendar. And so he just I literally will send him frame, like I'll upload everything to a frame. You'll have like 20 files sometimes, because I'll usually do like 1 or 2 sit downs throughout it to journal.
And do you film most of this yourself?
Yeah. So I'm a content guy. I love content. Well, let me phrase. I'm a tech guy. So I know all about how to set up lighting and cameras and such. And I also created a lot of efficiency, meaning my office now just has like, I sit down, I click record. And so it's not hard for me to film, right? Because the Zoom stuff is just me on my monitor. It's a shitty camera. And then if I want to sit down, I have different workstations. All I have to do is quite literally click record and take the SD card out. So it's not like it's abrasion, meaning I'll be on a Zoom call and sometimes I'll be like, oh, fuck, I want to talk about this. I'll hop over to a camera and I'll record really quick. And then I'll turn off and then I'll go on my next Zoom call sometime, or maybe I'll go get coffee, whatever it is. And I'll take my day and I'll upload it at like 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 15, 20 files on the frame. And I'm just like, have fun. Go for it. And I call him a storyteller, not an editor, because realistically it's his job to take all that random shit and just make a story out of it, whatever the story is for the day. And I don't really help him with it. And when he does it too clean, actually, I'm telling him like, stop trying to make this perfect. Make this like just messy. Yeah. And that's my style. That's what I'm going for. Cause everyone's trying to be perfect. I think everyone sees Iman and thinks that business is perfect.
But I think his content is, I like his raw stuff. I think a lot of his stuff now, it's like, I wouldn't watch it because it's too graphic and polished and like.
I love Iman. So
I love him, but I like his raw stuff's better rather than like a lot of the like overly edited
I've actually never seen the raw stuff. Believe it, the joke we always had is I never watched Iman videos before and during. And so all the events, Iman hated this, but even all the events that we did, I never watched any of them. Tristan will laugh and be like, hey, did you watch that one? And I'll be like, no, bro. But I did, like, I watched 2 videos over the last couple of days, and the mod ball one.
Yeah, that's what I watched actually.
Yeah, I was like, oh, bro, that's clean. That's a good video. I mean, you could call that raw too.
Yeah, that's what I meant that by raw.
Yeah,
it's not like over the top in terms of like
totally agree.
AI and all
but most people think because of how well polished a lot of his stuff is, that business is supposed to be perfect. So people are trying to make everything look perfect. And I think that everyone's always going to come short of perfect. So it's almost like trying to achieve something you can't do versus trying to just show what your day is, which is chaos.
How big is his content team?
I don't know what it is anymore, but before it was a lot slimmer. It's a lot slimmer than you think. So Tristan is the chief content officer, insanely talented guy. I love Tristan to death. Alex is the head of production. Alex probably has the hardest job out of anyone I know, which is staying to pace with Iman. You have no idea how long Iman's days are and how hard he goes. And Alex is the poor soul that has to be there the entire time. He loves it, but I empathize with that man. Alex has an editor that helps now on the videos for the stuff that we watched. And then I don't know how large their editing team is anymore. At one point, he got to dozens and dozens and dozens of people, and then they slimmed it down to really, they care more about quality than quantity now. That much I know. And so, smaller.
What's the biggest thing you learned from being part of that organization previously?
There's a lot, bro. I learned how to dress. That's number one. Yeah, Iman definitely gave me a good sense of style, fashion. I learned a lot about random things. Number one, like the personal stuff, I learned how to travel. I learned more about etiquette. Iman has great etiquette, and I learned how to, there's a lot on the personal side. On the business side, I definitely learned a lot from Iman, but I more so learned from the vehicle Iman gave me to learn. And so he gave me, just like I told you, I gave people like my CRO room to fuck up. He gave me a lot of room to fuck up, bro. And so most of what I learned in the business side was that because of working with Iman, was able to do something bigger than I could have done on my own. And that gave me a vehicle of fuck ups that it would have taken me decades to learn, and I learned it in 2 years. And so I just learned through the leverage that he had, if that makes sense.
100%. In terms of your experience and skill set you have now, what do you think is the biggest thing that's allowed you to grow like the experience you have now and develop all these different skills?
It's a good question. I think the only thing that I really do well above most else is I think I'm a good leader. I think I'm naturally a good leader. I don't know what it is, but every time I see people or meet people, they say that I have an energy or a presence or that I'm likable and such. I think it's just a God-given thing. I don't know why, but I think because of that, I'm able to work with people and get their trust and trust them. And like I said, you still get stabbed in the back and such, but I'm just able to work with really amazing people. And so all I focus on now is content, high level stuff like the offer, but I also like my thing is I'm very operational. So you saw like we talked about the gain, and like when we were recording earlier with Rob, you know, I'm walking him through like I don't see this, I don't see that, where's this, and I'm very type A, and so since the biggest thing as you grow, you probably face this. I remember this as you grow a business. It's almost like when you're doing everything, it's crystal clear. So let's pretend there's a window, and you're looking through the window. You're here, business is here. Crystal clear because you're doing everything. But then you bring on a sales rep and your sales window gets a little hazier. You don't know as much as unless you're watching every single call, you don't know as much, right? Then you bring on someone who's helping with product, and then you bring on CSMs. And now your CSMs, you don't know how your clients are doing as well because there's a layer between you and them, right? And before you know it, you're not even talking to the CSMs or the sales reps. You're talking to the sales managers, maybe even the sales managers' bosses. Like now you're talking to you know, C-suite and such. And you're like, how the fuck's the business doing, kind of thing. And so transparency in the window is something that I started to get really, I don't want to say good at, but I worked a lot toward. There's an operational value that I kind of stole from someone, which is show me, don't tell me. So instead, like end of day reports, I'm going to give you something that quite literally will change your business in like one day. Most people do end of day reports on Slack. They just, you know, send me like a quick little Slack breakdown. I changed end of day reports to videos. It looms specifically. So make me a 5-minute or less loom. I can 2.5x it. It only takes me 2 minutes or so. And I got so much more transparency on the business from a little loom than I would ever get from a quick Slack. Like I would like.
So did you get the 6 people who report to you directly?
They all send me looms, and they liked it so much that they would start making looms. Because the other thing too is, bro, when you have to send a Slack message of like I did this, you can kind of say whatever the fuck, you know. But when you have to send a loom, because the other thing about leadership teams, this is another really good programming. If you haven't done this with them, I call my leadership teams creation teams. So most people think leadership teams means that they have to manage people, and this is something I've never talked about. Really, really important. Most people, when you groom them to be leaders, see you grooming them, but they don't see the shit that you're building, right? And so when they become leaders or managers, whatever that, you know, VPs, etc., they think that their job is to do the leading and managing that they saw you doing. They don't build in turn. And so there was a big discrepancy. I've seen so many companies like mess up with this, where the only person building was the owner of the company, right? No one, but everyone else was like managing people or such, but like no one was like innovating for the owner too. And so what I started to say is like, I want you guys to think of yourselves as a creation team. Every single day, I want to see what you built to make the company a different company today. I want to see how you changed the identity of the company. And when I did the Slack stuff, I didn't really get a good idea of that. But when I switched it to Looms, now they felt this almost pressure of like, I need to make something that I can show Paul today. And so they started making shit. And then I started seeing it. And then I would see their calendars and be like, why the fuck is your calendar? Why did you do this and this and this and this on your calendar? Like, why did you do that? How is that beneficial to you or your time or the team, or whatever it was? And I could be so much, if you want to talk about pouring in, to pour into people, you have to have the context of knowing what they're doing, what they're working on, et cetera. And it's really hard because when they're doing all this stuff, they don't even know to tell you half the shit that they're doing. And then when we switched it to show me everything, I got so much transparency on every single person that I'd be like, why the fuck are you doing this kind of thing? Like, and I could just give such better feedback. I'll put it that way. And so the Loom end of day reports were game changing. I love Loom end of days.
That's probably one of the most basic things I've ever heard. I've never heard anyone say that.
I know.
Fucking genius.
It's massive, dude. Yeah. It changed the identity of our team completely overnight. So if anyone takes anything away from this, I promise, do me a favor, message me after. Be
literally, we're starting that tomorrow.
Cool. Yeah.
Would you just do that with the core people who like coming into you then? When do you personally review that? Do you review that at the end of every day yourself, or do you wait to the next morning? Because I also know from like one of the things, you only work Monday to Friday personally mainly, right? You take the weekends off.
Yeah, weekends family. I don't take weekends off, but I know that if I didn't intentionally not work, then I would not cater to my family. And so weekends are family time. I never will say that I love my family.
But I'm not the kind of guy to say that I work for my family. It'd be a lie completely right now. I work because I really love to work. And I am 100% programmed to want to work through the weekend. I think most guys are, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
I get restless.
And so, but Monday through Friday. So realistically, the rule is you can't send a Lumen past midnight EST, and that's just for time zones and such. And so even if it's not the end of your day, just send it in. So I know it, just to build a habit. And sometimes I'll watch them morning after. Sometimes I'll watch them night of. The other thing too, if you don't do this, is beginning of day reports. And so on the end of day, what they have to do is talk about so end of day is recapping on what they did, but also what their objective is for tomorrow. So most people don't know that you're going to have a better day. I'm sorry. Most business owners do, but most team members don't know that if you plan out what you want to do tomorrow, you're probably going to have a better tomorrow, right? And so have you ever read The One Thing by Gary Keller?
Yeah, it's a good book.
I pretty much have them do the same thing. What's the one thing you want to do tomorrow? And on the beginning of day, they'll say the same thing again. This is the one thing I want to do today. This is how I'm going to approach it.
And is that a Slack message or a Loom video again?
Both Looms. Yeah. So originally both Slack, and then as soon as I switched it, I was like both Looms. The beginning of day one is quite literally 30 seconds to a minute. It's not long, right? And it's like, it's so easy they send it to me. I watch it in the car. It takes 20 seconds. I know exactly what they're doing, right? And I see it on their calendar and everything. Versus and you'd be amazed, dude, when you start saying show me what you're going to do today, like the beginning of day one's on Loom, you're going to see it's not on their calendar. And you're like, great, when the fuck are you doing it? You said this is the one thing that would
get them to put it in their calendar when they're filming the Loom videos, like everything.
I want the calendar to have it by the time they fill the Loom, because otherwise, bro, I live by my calendar. I'm sure you live by your calendar. If it's not on the calendar, it's not getting done, right? Because if it's not on the calendar, then the reactive shit comes up. So what I've learned too is that everyone wants to feel busy. And so but it's almost like everyone will procrastinate against the most important shit, because the most important shit's usually the hardest shit to do. Sorry for cussing so much, but they would rather pretend that they have to talk to a team member because something's up than actually do the thing that puts them in deep work to get what they have to get done. So I want to see uninterrupted time on their calendar to do whatever they think will change. And the other reason I have them say that in the beginning of day report, what the one thing is. Okay, so just a little leadership way as to how I went about it. I would assign OKRs every month, meaning this month I want you to do X, Y, and Z. Or it was one thing. I want you to do X. If you were the sales team manager, it would be sometimes increasing the show rate to calls from setters or whatever. There was always something that I was like, this is, I think, where the biggest responsibility is. And then the one thing always had to be something that tailored toward that OKR. So if your one thing is increasing the show rate from setter to closer calls, and your one thing today was that I want to go over the demo deck for closers or whatever. I don't like demo decks, but this is just an example. Be like, why the fuck are you doing that? That's not helping you get toward the one thing that we know is going to be the most changing thing in the business. So a lot of the time too, it would allow me to reprogram what they were going to do for the day.
Going off track.
Yeah, they do that all the time. And so a lot of the time you stop them from going off track afterward, because a lot of people do end of day reports. So, hey, I just spent the entire day doing this. And you're like, great, you just wasted a fucking day. And so I want to try to be as proactive with that as possible. So we did beginning of day reports. I try to watch instantly, because those are, like, to me, the most important ones of, like, let me direct you to make sure you're good. It's actually the hardest thing to do correctly when you have worldwide teams, because if you have people in, England and then you're in the US, their beginning of day starts 5 hours before you. So that's why they also have to stay on the end of day prior to. So if they send in an end of day at 7 p.m. their time, that means I'm getting it at 2 p.m. I can watch it and message them if they have a bad one thing and then direct them before. So that's kind of why I also have them do the one thing on the end of day beforehand time zones. But so anyway, Loom to tell me about what they're going to do that day. And then I want to see on another Loom at the end of the day what they actually did, how they built it. I want to see what they created. I think a business is the assets that it has, right? And so realistically, if you actually created something that's going to help the business today, if you created a pre-call doc or a pre-call, PDF or warm-up page, or you created a free asset that our setters can use to send out to people, or you created, a new landing page, or whatever it is, you're giving the business something that can allow it to grow, rather than, hey, I talked to X people and, blank per, because that's what I'm sure a lot of your end of day reports are. Talk to this person, had this call. It's like, it just doesn't do
being
anything.
Busy for being busy.
Being busy for being busy. And so I started thinking, or framing is like, be creators, not reactors kind of thing.
What do you think is going to be the biggest change in the next 12 months in the info product space?
I have no idea, dude. I think the school thing, I love Sam Ovens, and I think Hermosi, of course, will still push, but I think that I think school is way overhyped.
Dude, I came up with an idea. You could steal this as well. Let's make a YouTube video why Alex Hermosi is wrong, because unless you have a massive audience, why is selling a $97 a month school group going to make you any money? Unless you have a huge amount of traffic from
It's
somewhere.
the only way to do it is if you like spend a ton of money on ads to get people there, but then retention is probably gonna be dog shit because engagement on anything outside of Facebook and Instagram, to me, has been notoriously low. It's been very hard to create group. I don't think communities are. I just don't think that they're valuable for 99.9% of people. It's a really like the perception of value is there, but then you get in there and like, no one's actually answering my questions. I don't know any of these people, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's trying to sell me something. And so you have, I would guess, higher churn in a lot of the school communities. And so you can't really spend ads there because it's gonna be too expensive.
Ticket price too low.
Yeah, and you just don't. And with the low ticket price, the only way to make it work is the recurring, but you're not gonna get a return because you'll get churn. In which case, then you have to do it organically. And if you're going to do it organically, there are a lot better ways to monetize than sending people to a low ticket school group. And so I think, anyway, I know Sam and I have had a couple calls together. He's a really, really, really smart dude. I think that he's going to hit $1 billion this year on the valuation for school. He already told me that. Genius. But I just don't think school will stay around as a big thing for as big as it is for much longer. I think it's kind of like AI. AI had its thing.
Yeah.
People still think it's the thing, blah, 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 but it's not. School is right now the thing. I think it's going to end whatever happens next. But I think that's the first thing right now. The info product space is all about community, low ticket, etc. And the other thing too is that model works if you're selling a high ticket program, if you have a really good sales team. But it's so fucking hard to ascend people from a school community to a high ticket thing. Like everyone's like struggling with that. And they already went all in on one basket because Hormozi, everyone glorifies Hormozi, bro. Hormozi is a genius. He's a smart guy. But the one thing that a lot of people have against Hormozi that are smart people is everything that he preaches and teaches is not what he practiced. He teaches make free content, give things away for free, do all this for free.
Ran ads and sold high ticket.
Bro, he made a sales organization. The book that he had was a fucking VSL toward like a $30,000 package. Everything he teaches is not at all what he did. And it's inarguable. You can't say that giving stuff away for free is a bad thing, but it's not what he did. And he did not make a $37 school group or $7 per month school group or whatever. And so, anyway, I think people, I was on a call the other day. You said you've been watching the content.
Yeah.
Have you been liking it?
Yeah, it's really, really good. Really, really good.
Everyone that I ask that watches Hormozi is like, well, Hormozi says that you need to tell people who you are and then this and this and this. And I'm like, well, Hormozi says this. And they act like it's Simon Says. Simon says it, so you have to do it kind of thing. And it's the one thing I don't like about how when people take someone too seriously, it's really dangerous. And people take Hormozi's word for gospel right now.
But you remember when I said to you earlier, being like contrarian thinking to what everyone else is doing? I see people in my industry who are trying to help fitness trainers build their business now doing low ticket. I'm like, you guys are fools. So I'm like, I'm over here and all your clients are now coming to us because we're selling the high ticket thing with accountability, one-to-one support, what people actually want. Yeah, exactly. Not the cheap group.
And so I have a rule, which is money does not like the masses, meaning whatever the masses are doing, stay far and far between, because realistically, if you have a school community, now you're just a voice in the crowd at that point. The other thing to what you said too is that unless you have an audience, like let's say trainers, I'm guessing that, most trainers probably have so many conversations a week or a month, right? So if you only have 50 conversations a month and you go from selling something for $5,000 to $27, the math just doesn't work as well. Ironically, you probably won't sell too many more $27 things than you would the $5,000 thing. All you're doing is making less money because you're not getting in front of more people, right? And so it's a very broken plan.
I'll give you a really good practical example that's true. I started my fitness business selling $47 a month, 8-week challenges in 2017. I sold someone who bought a $47 a month thing, an $11,000 coaching program. He originally bought the $47 thing. And then when I sold him that, I was like, why am I going to bother getting 1,000 people and selling them a 47 when I can just get one person to give me 11 grand?
Yeah, it's easier too. The people I don't know if you saw it. I have a $1 per day video group. $1 per day, $7 a week. That's actually how we build it. $7 a week. I build $1 a day until I realized that Stripe takes, I don't know if you know this. I forgot.
It's per transaction, isn't it?
They take 3.9 or 2.9, but they take 29 cents per transaction. So my Stripe fee on $1 per day was 33%. So I switched it to $7 a week. And the people bitch so much more in that about, like, if I'm not recording every single day in there, there's so much more complaints and churn than my, $25,000 clients or such, who, like, if they don't hear from me for a month, they're like, I don't fucking care, And so anyway, yeah, you get better quality of life, but it also just makes more sense. So the only reason the low ticket stuff makes sense, the only reason is if you have a big audience, or you can run ads really well and get them in there, but you also have a really good setter team, which most people don't have. Like I'm talking a dialed in process. Like to do a school community right, this is what I would guess you have to do. And I'm saying guess, but this is really what you would have to do. And Facebook groups have been doing this for a while now. But you probably have to have a copywriter writing on your behalf, at least 1 or 2 valuable posts every single day. And so you're doing 2 steps and such, but you're making valuable posts every single day to show that you're in there, probably even making videos, like selfie videos and everything for the group. Then you probably have to have some kind of free coaching calls in the group, right? Which have a lot of people going to. So you have coaching calls in the group, you have value posts in the group. And then you have setters who are positioned as coaches, helping coach and everything like that. And they're pushing people forward. But the group takes more work sometimes than your fucking actual paid program. Like that. Think about having a product. You have to make the lower ticket stuff even better than your actual product to make people want to ascend. Does it make sense? Because 1,000%. Most people have a shit school group. And so people are going to think, okay, this is dog shit. So I'm sure that if whatever else they have is also going to be dead and dog shit, you know? And so you have to make an amazing product. At that point, I would just argue, like, why not just do that on front end and try to make better content, better marketing, and a better product over here. Anyway, I do I enjoy $27 low ticket one-off like lead magnets. You know, like I made a PDF on this, or I made a training on this and such, or free documents that people can, you run ads, you lose a couple bucks on the front end, but you get leads on the back. I think those work really well with setter teams, but I think school communities just crush people. I do. And again, Sam Ovens, I doubt you'll ever watch this, but if you do watch it, your platform is amazing. It's a great platform. I just think people are using it a little too heavily, if that makes sense. They're relying on it too much.
Agree, 100%. We'll wrap up there because I'm respectful of your time and we're doing it to eat. Where's the best place for people to find out more about you, Paul?
Paul Daley on Instagram.
Awesome. That was probably one of the best podcasts recorded. I took a ton of value from that. I'm sure the audience did. Make sure you give Paul a follow. If you enjoyed the podcast, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you next episode very soon. Thank you, dude.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.